Hello everyone! Finally, I get to make the comparison between Epoxy Sculpt and Epoxy Clay. Aves Studio had crazy sale going on, certain epoxy colors, and they also had a coupon for 10% off site-wide. If that sale is still going on, I highly recommend you run over there and grab some stuff. It was literally $8 off, like a pound. Normally they're $18. It was on sale for $10 plus an additional 10% off. So definitely run over there. I've never seen a sale like this for them. And I check on Black Friday all the time just to see. I've never seen this. So anyway, able to finally try colors as well. This is the blue. I also got orange and yellow. I haven't tried any of them yet, but I figured I would make the comparison because there are no videos out there at all showing the differerences between the Epoxy Sculpt and the Epoxy Clay. Ever since I started looking for epoxy to customize model horses, the very first time I was looking for stuff, I've always wondered what the difference was. But many people used Sculpt. Everyone said Sculpt. I didn't see so much on the Clay, so I just went with what everybody already knew, and I just never had a chance to try out the Clay until now with that sale. So I'm very excited. So I got a little thing just to see how it works. I'm going to compare, because my natural epoxy sculpt is older, so the properties do kind of change a little bit when it's older. It's a little harder to work with sometimes, and it sets up faster. So I wanted to make the comparison of two that came in literally at the same time in the same order, just that this one is blue and not the natural color that I think this is. Although, I don't know, we'll see, because there's only one color of this, I think. I got the natural, I'm pretty sure. So we'll see. Anyway, so let's get started here. Open this up, and these I already took the plastic off. So here is the blue epoxy. Ooh, nice and fresh. Look at that. Oh, smells like corn chips. Corn chip. Look how fresh that is. Okay, so here's our part B, I believe this was. Yes, part B, which is, I think, the hardener, if I am not mistaken. Doesn't matter. And here's the colored part, which is also the colored part. So, looks pretty similar to the other ones. This might be a little more sticky than the natural, but we shall see. Let's, oh, the corn chips. Whew, corn chip. Alright, and here we have the epoxy clay. Let me just wipe my hands off so I'm not contaminating, cross-contaminating here. That is a lot softer. That almost feels like, that's interesting. That almost feels like part A of the natural. And that is part B. So that is usually the firmer side. Let's see what A is like. Oh, this is like a brownish color. That's interesting. That's kind of like crumbly. It almost seems the opposite. So we'll see how this works. Alright, let's start with the clay since I'm right here with it. And this should be by volume. Wipe this off. Get an even amount here by eye. Yeah, this is the quarter-pound size. I believe the smallest size you can get from them, which is quite a bit in here. Because if you mix these together, so this whole chunk of stuff is how much epoxy you're basically getting here. So it's a good decent amount, at least for a drastic stablemate, I would say. So it's a good size, and it's a good trial size as well. Just some protectant on my hands, barrier cream. It's more for paint, but it's still good to have a barrier of some sort on your fingers. Normally I do use gloves when I mix this stuff, but I'm just doing a quick video and little tiny pieces, so really you should put gloves on your hands, but I'm just going to show you this quickly. So here's about equal amounts of the two. We're going to mix them together. So yeah, it's almost like if you take Epoxy Sculpt and it's either older or but not as crumbly, or you let it sit up for a little while and it firms up. That's what it's feeling like right now. I actually kind of really like it. Let's see how it behaves. seems easier to control, if that makes sense. So we'll see if it actually does that when we put it on the model. Let us see. Got a little Django custom here that I'm working on. That was supposed to just be a simple custom, but of course we're going to redo the whole thing. So let's make some feathers, some extra feathers on him. Oh, and I also got the safety solvent finally. I've always wanted to try. I've had a different smoothing solution for the Amazing Sculpt that I had for like ever, that I've been using, and it works pretty much on everything, but I've also heard a lot about this, so I kind of was curious how this compares to the other one. And again, that sale allowed me to try the stuff I've been wanting to try for years. Not that I really needed to spend this money right now, but I couldn't pass up that good deal. Thanks a lot, Miller. She's the one who made us all aware of this deal and made me spend money. Anyway, this already smells nicer than the Amazing Solution one. To use a little bit of this. This is supposed to help you smooth stuff. It's better. I find at least the Amazing one is better than water and better than, well, not better, it's just different. This is definitely more clay-like. It really is. I don't know how to like say it differently. It's not thicker, but firmer. Let's zoom. Can we zoom in more so we can see the properties? It's just firmer. It's easy, much easier to control. It's more, a little more waxy feeling. It feels a little more like a firm oil clay in a way. I actually kind of really like it. And the smoothing solution is pretty nice too. I almost feel like I might like the Amazing one better. This one doesn't have too much of an effect. It's more oily than the Amazing Sculpt one, but either will do just fine. So I'd probably prefer to order from Aves anyway, so that is probably more like, yeah, this is very similar to like an oil clay, although it does seem to want to be more crumbly than, you know, like an older epoxy almost. This is also coming out very terrible. But yeah, so it is, I agree, it is more clay-like, and to be more specific, it's kind of like a firm oil-based clay in a way, or an epoxy that you've let firm up for a little while. So it would probably be good for things with more structure, like armor, carousel trappings, things like that, I think. Like, I don't know if this is something I would switch to myself, but it's definitely good to have in your supply arsenal for certain things. It's not as crumbly as an older epoxy. I feel like you can remedy it better. Where is my little brush? Why can't I find anything? I just cleaned this area. Here it is. Okay. So I'll bring this closer so we can see. And actually, it smooths nice too without losing too much detail. I put too much stuff on there, too much of the solution. I am undecided if this is something that, like, I would order more of, but I think this size is perfect for having in the studio for things that I would need it for, unless I decide to try and do a full sculpt with it, although I have enough epoxy sculpt now to last me like 20 years because I don't go through that much of it, and I ordered 3 colors. So yeah, that is that, and then I will finish this up, and then we can do the epoxy and compare exactly right now what it's like, the differences, and then you can see what it's like. Alright, so there you have it. Finished up the feathers pretty much, except for the front on this side, but also I added a little bit up here with the extra. So this is the white epoxy sculpt versus the natural in the clay Apoxie Clay. Not the super white. The super white is actually whiter than this. This is like a light gray, which is very similar in color to Magic Sculpt. The natural in the Epoxy Sculpt is a darker gray. This is like a light brown, like a tan color, which actually is quite nice for showing up detail. So I think this would be an amazing thing for original sculptures, the color and everything, because even when Kelly Sealy casts her micros and stuff in that light tan, it like shows details really well, and where you need to prep and everything. I think this would be a very good transition epoxy. Like if you're very used to doing original sculptures with like oil-based clays and stuff and want to try epoxy and try customs, I think this would be a good transition to start getting used to epoxy, because it behaves very similarly, and it's also got the epoxy properties. But so yeah, let's try the regular epoxy now. So fresh. Yeah, this is a lot softer than any epoxy I've worked with so far, it seems. I mean, I haven't mixed it yet, but I could tell just by this piece, it's very sticky, part A. Even part B is softer, but that's probably because it's fresh. I guess that's about the same. Yeah, that's about the same. So let's mix this up. Wow, this is soft. Okay. My epoxy's either that old or this stuff is just way softer. I could tell, like definitely the blue part A, is definitely softer even for a fresh epoxy. I've never felt anything that soft on epoxy. This might just be softer than I'm used to because my epoxy is pretty old at this point. So this is a lot less crumbly. Right off the bat, it's more elasticy than really any epoxy. This is actually quite nice. So this is the blue properties, because I think the colors may behave a little differently because of the pigments that are in them. So it's not like super direct comparison, but at least we get to see what the color one works like. And I know I have experience with the natural normally for all the years I've been doing that, so all my comments on that had to do with what I've worked with previously. So this is nice and elasticy and sticky, a lot more sticky. But yeah, it's still got that same epoxy feel to it, just softer than normal. See this right away, it smooths on a lot easier because it's stickier. But, you know, the downside is it is soft, so it's going to be easy to squish what you just did. But it's also going to take tooling a lot easier. So this takes the tooling a lot easier, a lot less crumbly, a lot softer. It's also a lot softer than the natural. Quite like it. Oh, this is very nice. So yeah, I mean, I am more used to the feeling of epoxy, kind of like this, except this is, like I said, it's softer and stickier, so it's a little easier to work with. But you do have to be careful not to squish. So, I mean, it's just going to take more getting used to because it's not something I normally use, the other one. But this actually felt more like my older, oh, look, see, I already smushed that. Like my older epoxy. When it gets older, it's just firmer and a little harder to work with. But this is like super soft and super easy to work with. So this blue is really cool. So I'm wondering how the colors compare. I got orange and yellow. The white I've used, it was definitely not this soft. And it's gotten a little older now, so now it behaves kind of like more like natural. The Epoxy Sculpt white, when I first got it, like fresh, it behaved a lot like Magic Sculpt. So if you want an alternative for Magic Sculpt, if you can't find it anywhere, or if it's cheaper, the white Epoxy Sculpt is very comparable. The natural is more firmer and kind of like that, like the clay. So yeah, there are definitely differences. Right now I am preferring this blue over any epoxy I've ever used. I mean, that came out way better than the other side and took less effort because it was soft. you know, there's only so much you can tell from a direct comparison like this when I don't have a fresh batch of the natural. But at least you get to see the consistency of this stuff and hear what it feels like in my hands. Real quick again, it's very similar to more of an oil-based feeling clay, like a waxiness, so you get those crumbles. It feels more of like a firmed up Epoxy Sculpt Natural, or an older Epoxy Sculpt, this stuff. So if you like working with that, like just let it get a little firmer for a while, type of stuff, or you're used to working with really hard oil-based clays like Chavant and stuff like that, it would be a good transition one for you. But to go out of the way to go get that one instead of Epoxy Sculpt, I don't know if it's worth that. Again, this is always like what works for you. What works for me may not work for you. This blue epoxy is like amazing. I don't know, it was like magical something or another, because it was super soft but smooth. That's the key, smoothness. Like when you get that crumbliness is when it gets a little annoying if you're not used to working with clays like that. I'm used to working with it and it still annoys me, but this is quite nice. My only fear with this is that it's so soft, I am so gonna destroy it every time I go to touch it. So, yeah, so it's a give and take. Anyway, hopefully this is helpful, and finally there's a video out there comparing the two directly, for the most part, and my thoughts on them, my experiences with them. Well, not the clay, because that's the first time I'm experiencing that. So yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye!